I'm doing the thing where I open up the link and I hit the live button, and yeah, we did it. We hit the live button. Um, apparently we're live, so that's pretty cool. Um, I don't know if anyone is, and it looks like we got a few people waiting in the chat. So hey, if that's you, if it is you, we're gonna give it a minute or so and let us know how things sound. If they sound kind of dumb, we can fix it before we start talking. You know what I'm saying? You know, you already know what I'm talking about, Ant. Ant gets it. You know what I am trying to do though, before just trying to make sure that the resolution here is working out. That's why I haven't been doing the live streams for the last. We didn't do one last month, I don't think, because because I totally royally fucked it up. All right, so it looks like it works, or it looks like a thing. So a thing is the thing. That's good. I just liked my own video though on YouTube. That's probably not a good thing. Yeah, I should. All right, I unliked it. Did I just fuck up the algorithm? Yeah, I'm. What a fuck up. All right, let's. Dude, don't threaten me with YouTube punishment. Yeah, no, I follow some people who do news based content, but in a funnier comedic kind of way, and just based off of what they cover and when they cover it, YouTube will flag and demonetize things. If it has anything to do with coronavirus, it's just automatic flag for talking about mass casualty stuff. So I don't know, whatever. YouTube, I see you, but we are live on YouTube, so I'll shut the hell up. No, I don't. All right. Welcome into Dragon Ball Super Dope. My name is Kyle. Thank you for checking this out. Once a month, we do a live stream on the YouTube. If you're not subscribed to us, it's youtube.com/Dragon Ball Super Dope. Go do that now. Once a month, I get together with my friend Anthony Gramulia from comicbookresources.com and a million other websites. Very accomplished writer, recently engaged as of this weekend. Congratulations, my friend. Yo, this is some. You told me the story prior to us hitting record, and it's heartwarming, and I'm happy that you've had this positive, great memory made over the last few days, and for whatever reason, you've chosen to cap off this beautiful weekend with me talking about Dragon Ball stuff. So yeah, Dragon. You know what I always say to people is that Dragon Ball fucking rules. So here we are talking about Dragon Ball. For those who are listening, you've been longtime listeners, last couple years or whatever. You'd know that in the early days, we were very big with the use of Facebook. Then one day, the Weeb Wars happened, and the Nazis got the page taken down. Have been kind of skittish on trying to go back to Facebook ever since, but we did start a Dragon Ball group in the last couple of days, and it's called Roshi's Secret Stash. Everyone always talks about, his secret porno stash, but never about his weed stash or his meme stash. So that group aims to correct that great injustice. Roshi's Secret Stash on Face group. Roshi's Secret Stash on Facebook. That's the name of the group. Yeah, right. With the topic suggestions that you and I have been covering, we've got a running list of topics in our head that we talk about sometimes, and but we wanted to kind of open it up to more people and get some more suggestions from just outside of our two brains. So yeah, yeah, we're gonna put that one off for this month, man. But I'll talk about Bulma's costumes, and I'll do that all day, every day. I'll get a PowerPoint presentation made up. We be a great excuse for me to try to talk to a cosplay girl. That's for sure. So we opened up the suggestions to the group and said, hey, What would you guys like to hear us talk about? We got a ton of good suggestions. I say all of that as a long way to say, if you want to make your suggestions heard, jump in on this group. Make sure you go check it out, Roshi's Secret Stash on the Facebook, so that way you can give us your, Dragon Ball suggestions that you want us to talk about. Christopher Wade jumping in the chat. What up, gang? What up, Christopher Wade? I'll tell you what's up. Is he a friend of yours? Dude, Ant's always bringing the people. Always bringing the people. So we got the suggestion. It was actually the last suggestion that was given to us. And it's something that I realized that once it was suggested to us from my buddy Jason, I realized it's something that I could probably rant about pretty readily, almost immediately off the top of my head. And that is the underutilization or the lack of use of the characters of Goten and Trunks in Dragon Ball Super. And I don't know, I've definitely yelled about it for 3 to 5 minute spurts at a time over the last couple of years, but it's something that definitely bothers me and many fans in this fandom, because they started off as such cool, fun little badasses in Dragon Ball Z and just were eventually relegated to a nothing role in Super. How do you feel about Goten and Trunks how did you feel about them in Dragon Ball Z? We'll start there. Ant.
Baggage on him than Trunks does.
Okay.
Because our first introduction to Trunks is really in during the Android and Cell saga. He's this. We see him as a fully matured badass, essentially.
Okay.
He comes in from the future, like this whole Terminator subplot, basically. Future hardened warrior, tough relationship with his father because he never really knew him. He has a strained relationship with everyone around him because he's like, you guys all like the heroes who I knew, who my mom told me about, but now you're dead. There's this divide there, and he has to kind of get to know everyone as a person rather than as a name or as a legacy character to him. So when we get to Trunks and Boo, we see Trunks as a kid. And on one hand, there is that element of edginess and confidence that we see that his father represents as well. But I feel like we never really got. I feel like everything Trunks did as a kid immediately was compared to Trunks as a hardened badass from the future. He never was able to, as a kid, escape the shadow of his former self in previous season, and that's very problematic because while Trunks from the future was such a major character in his arc, Kid Trunks was always he was auxiliary. He was kind of an auxiliary character to his father, and to Goten. Goten was a little easier, I think, because Goten, he was introduced, this season. There is no baggage. There is no future Goten who comes back from the Android saga. So he was his own character, and Goten really was what you'd expect Goku's kid to be. I feel like in every sense of the word. Whereas Gohan was his own unique character, Goten really felt like Goku's kid, what you'd expect Goku's kid to be like. Which is funny considering Goku was not alive for any of his childhood until the Buu saga.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the way that the Goten, the natural qualities of his character just replicate Goku so well, even though Goku, like you said, wasn't around for him being a child. I thought that it was just a blatant, like seeing Goten introduced as a character when I first watched that in Dragon Ball Z. I assumed that it was a pretty blatant attempt to just have a little Goku around again while still having the ability to, still use adult Goku, sort of like reset the clock a little bit for the fandom. But then, they go on to do that exact same thing that I just outlined for Dragon Ball GT, 100 or whatever episodes later, when Dragon Ball Z ends. What I think the most interesting part of what we I think the most interesting part of what you just started down the road of is the expectation for Trunks, and how Trunks, as future Trunks, is like the epitome of a badass. He shows up, chops Frieza in half, and we know he's a Super Saiyan. He's the second Super Saiyan we see. We know he's Vegeta's kid, so there's that air of badass about him as well. There's so many good things going for future Trunks, and then when we see him again after that 3-year jump when the androids happen, it's pretty much inevitable that Baby Trunks, due to the timeline, is going to be a person that is in the equation. You don't really think about it too much and how these two characters do or don't interact. It's cool to see it again happen when it happens in Dragon Ball Super, to see 7, 8-year-old Trunks interact with future Trunks. But I think you're right. Little kid Trunks never stood a chance. I mean, he has this impossible bar to live up to that was previously set by future Trunks. And he's also had the benefit of having, not grown up in a hellscape and living with both of his parents. Like,
Yeah.
he's got every reason to be like a stupid, happy-go-lucky, careless kid and not that
Yeah.
scared shell of a thing that's just fighting for survival in future Trunks. You know what I mean?
Exactly. He doesn't have that same. He's not terrified, which is great. He's not traumatized. He's not, broken from experience. But I think at the same time, that also made him more of the kid character, which I think like a lot of. I guess at that point, people were afraid of the kid joining in the series. I don't mean the kid as though a specific kid. I mean the stock of the kid, the stock character, the kid. The young, immature. Everyone else is more adult. Everyone else is more mature, and he's like this little. I don't know. Like I think people at the
I'd have
time
to
were
disagree
upset.
with that one, though, only because Gohan's been that kid character.
Mm,
And now we finally hit a point where it's like, well, 12-year-old little Gohan just defeated Cell. We're going to jump 7 years into the future. We know that we're going to have Trunks around because he's already been established in this timeline, being the little
mm,
baby. Let's give him Goten, so that way he's got somebody to bounce off of. Like you said, he's like a natural
mm,
kind of foil and like an extension of Goten. The only reason we get
mm.
to see little Trunks as often as we do is because he's typically palling around with Goten. Um,
Exactly.
and that's actually like a perfect like way to set them up at the beginning of the Buu saga, because and we were talking about this
Mm,
exact thing
mm,
before we started to record. One thing Dragon Ball Z always did, and Dragon Ball always did particularly well, is time skips and then
mm,
reestablishing things in this new setup with a story and the relationship between the characters after this period of time is skipped over. When we get the 7-year skip from Cell to Boo, seeing grown up Trunks, okay, or I shouldn't say grown up Trunks, but 8-year-old Trunks. And now we get this new character of Goten, and a lot of what you see in early Z is just them kind of palling around, dicking around as little kids would do, as you would expect them to do. But
mm,
very quickly, because Goku is, in his off-world dead capacity, only back for a very short time. Vegeta does what he does. Gohan is absorbed. Like, all of these things happen where Goten and Trunks are the only ones available to be able to step up. And they get the fusion dance training, and Gotenks, the 7-year-old or the 8-year-old combined into this powerful Super Saiyan 3 character. They're greater than the sum of their parts. Obviously, individually, keeping them around as kids would be tough to do because there's two of them. Also, kind of a little annoying. I think it would get annoying. Gotenks as a character is kind of annoying, but
It's a tough one, I think. Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah. But attitude in the way doesn't work as well because it's just so much sass, but also it's frustrating watching it because the whole Gotenks element doesn't resolve the plot of the Buu saga. It does feel very much like Akira Toriyama had this cool idea, wanted to use it, but didn't know how to tie it in with the resolution of the arc. Not that it isn't cool and one of the best parts of the whole arc, but it feels auxiliary. Auxiliary? It
Auxiliary.
feels yeah, it feels extra.
Yeah,
It feels
extra as fuck.
extraneous.
You can just say it. It's cool.
It's extra as fuck. It's extra as fuck. But what's funny is it's less extra, strange enough, than Vegito, which I think is the standout fusion of the whole arc, and feels much more narratively tied in with the whole everything. And it's funny because Boo is, I don't know, there's a lot of elements in the Boo saga that don't really add up to the final resolution of the plot, which is ultimately the Spirit Bomb blows up Boo.
Yep.
But it's so memorable, and that tells you something. It's memorable even though it ultimately doesn't serve a real function in the narrative. Not a point. It serves a point, but not a function in the resolution. And I think it's memorable because people love it. It's a cool idea. It's so freaking cool.
It's so cool to the point that, I mean, I would argue that the fusion, Patara or fusion dance or otherwise, is probably the most noteworthy thing to come out of the Buu saga in its entirety. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was an entire video game called Dragon Ball Z Fusions because
Mm-hmm.
fusion is such a compelling part of this world. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
having these two little kid characters who, are the second son of Goku, the first son of Vegeta, having them able to be contributors to the plot or to like even if the plot is they're just trying to buy time until Goku or Vegeta can get back to help handle
Mm-hmm.
things, the fact that they were involved was cool and it kind of brought a different element to it. It wasn't always just the like you could liken it to somebody like Piccolo or Tien Shin Han with holding down Imperfect Cell in that hole, the triangle shaped square hole.
Hey.
He has this whole plight where he's like, I know that I'm not strong enough to do this, but whatever, I'm probably going to die. I'm here to sacrifice and do the right thing here. Goten and Trunks, well, we all know that these kids should not be in a position to be able to handle it. They can probably get a few good licks in, and they don't have that like somber, I'm going to die disposition, especially after they fuse. Like if they fuse, they're all about
Mm-hmm.
whooping some ass and talking a lot of smack. And that's one of my favorite things I think about it's just not Gotenks as a character, but like the switch in dynamic. Like it's not always like a noble sacrifice. All of a sudden you have this like cocky little kid character who's coming in with a different kind of bravado. We ultimately know he's going to get his ass whooped, but it's in a different kind of fun way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I will say this also: the fusion with Gotenks has one of the coolest attacks in all of Dragon Ball. The
Super Ghost
the Super
Kamikaze
Ghost
attack.
Kamikaze attacks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. You don't say away from I'm going to say that. Yeah, no. Super Ghost Kamikaze attack is one of the most unique, fun, cool attacks in all of Dragon Ball. It's so unique and different. It's great. And also, I'll point out one other thing. Um, when years later, shows would take inspiration from the fusion element of Dragon Ball, they take inspiration from the fusion dance. They wouldn't show. They, give me an example. There's the cartoon Steve Universe, for example.
Go
That show
on,
also
my
does
friend.
fusion, but they don't plug in the earrings. They do their like freaking like stylistic dance numbers to get the fusion getting set up.
It's literally
Every
like a
fusion is
choreographed
them
ballroom
dancing in
dance
some
routine.
different way.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. Yeah, it's a literal fusion dance, and it's entirely done because of Dragon Ball Z, and because the element was so memorable. Because Goten and Trunks' fusion was so iconic and so like I don't know. It's one of the biggest takeaways from that arc. But there is ultimately the problem that after Z, Goten and Trunks never really had their combined potency after that arc. I don't think they ever had that element of because of course there's GT and then there's Super, and in both series I think they kind of wasted both characters to an extent. Even though GT took the really cool ideas developed at the time skip of Z at the end of the Buu saga when they skipped 10 years ahead and they showed Goten and Trunks in a place that makes sense but wouldn't be the first thing you'd think they'd go. Trunks is now ready to inherit his mom's company. Goten is flirting with all the ladies, going on dates. These aren't the places you'd expect Goten and Trunks to be in if you were just watching the Buu arc. But it also makes complete sense that they'd be here. It's not your first guess, but it makes complete sense even if you don't even stop to think about it. If you just look at it, oh yeah, they would do that. That would be where they are.
A little bit. I think what drives me bananas about the way that they're used in Super versus Dragon Ball Z, and you're right, the fact that we already have some implications of how they eventually grow up to be because of how the 10-year time skip at the end of Dragon Ball Z, what we've seen them go on to be in Dragon Ball GT, Trunks the businessman, Goten the ladies man, respectively. I think knowing those things, we maybe sort of had an idea of like what they're going to continue to do now that they're in that same window of their lives where they just finished fighting, Majin Buu and, being a pretty considerable contribution toward that battle. How are they going to continue to play into the fold before eventually, they're kind of going to break off from being a fighter? Maybe we're going to get to be able to see them start to become less interested in fighting and protecting the earth and all that. And kind of get to watch that progression happen, which I would be okay with. If that was the case, if Goku's like trying to, guilt Goten into training all the time, and he's like, "Hey, we need to go out there, you're getting soft, kid," and he's like, no, I need to go talk to my girlfriend down the block. I would be okay if I saw that. My problem with Dragon Ball Super and how they use Trunks and Goten is somebody always fucking brings it up. Hey, what about those kids? Remember that time they fought Majin Buu? That was wild, right? Yeah, that was pretty wild. They're kids though, so let's just leave them at home. Where the fuck was that mentality last time? Why didn't you just send Piccolo off to go try to buy some time? No, you're sending your 7-year-old and 8-year-old off to go. Don't tell me what I do and don't want to see.
You mean you don't send your children off to suffer the slings and arrows of people who can blow up planets?
You know what? If I had children, I would. Now that we had this conversation, I would do that. Yeah.
You just throw them in the deep end. Throw them in the deep end of the circumstances. That's good.
So we've got them in Z as, contributors, and then Super, they're kind of just at best mechanisms or little pieces to move the plot forward. I'm sure there's a better word that I couldn't just think of right now.
Plot devices?
There you go. Plot devices. Things to move the plot forward. Yeah.
So that sums up right there.
Words.
That's sadly their role.
Yeah, words are my friend. So,
we're not doing any words today.
No, fuck words. And anytime that we have them actually show up and do the fusion dance, typically it's only to have them immediately defuse and have it be an example of, wow, they just smacked Gotenks right out of his GD fusion. This guy's really strong. They do that with Beerus in the first handful of episodes or the first movie. I believe they do that again with the copy Vegeta stuff. There's at least 2 or 3 examples in Super where they just fuse solely for the sake of getting smacked and defusing immediately afterwards.
They become Worf.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you explain? I know what you mean by that. I know that we've talked about it on streams in the past.
Oh yeah.
Tell the audience theory. What they mean, man. What's Worfing somebody?
So Worf is. I was actually just watching Star Trek Next Gen before. Actually, it's
nerd.
Funny. So Worf is one of the characters. You gotta have this with No, so Worf is one of the characters in Star Trek Next Gen. He's this Klingon who's basically like this warrior culture and always doing the honorable warrior thing. And whenever there's a new physical threat they have to confront, Worf is always the first one to dive in and fight it. And then when they want to show this guy's war and it's like a serious business, they show Worf getting his butt kicked. Because he's the token badass. Everyone knows Worf is a badass. You accept it. But so if this guy beats Worf, you feel badass. I think Worf gets beaten in fights more often than he wins them. I think
that's how badass he is. Worf is so badass he doesn't even have to win fights to be badass. That's how badass he is.
Yeah, I'm having trouble thinking of a bunch. There's a few times obviously come to mind, but usually Worf gets beaten more significant to the plot than when he wins. Interesting enough, it shows this guy is serious business.
And that's sort of
Gotenks.
That's sort of that role for Gotenks. Have it done with Beerus. I think he jumps in again during the Tagoma stuff and Revival of F when they work that whole thing out for the episodes, which is actually one of the only times where I felt like the anime did it better than the movie. I wasn't a big fan of them recycling the movies, but I actually really liked what they did with Toguma's character. Tagoma. I haven't talked enough about him. And then the Ginyu stuff, working that in. I think that's why I liked it.
Yeah, Ginyu worked, I think, too, especially. And I like how they use Ginyu. I like Ginyu in general. I think he's an underrated villain.
For sure. And, think about it, man. Like, how many friends do you know who, at their wedding, have done a Ginyu pose with their groomsmen? I know at least 3 people who have done that. We have to thank Captain Ginyu.
Too many.
For that.
I love it.
So
he's more of a Rikum and Bird fan myself.
Yeah, Rikum and Birder were big, tall men. Fastest in the universe. Sounded worse than I meant it. So with Gotenks basically just getting his ass handed to him. And I think Gotenks is just a more convenient way to refer to Goten and Trunks collectively. So I'll probably go back and forth between Goten and Trunks and Gotenks, even though I may mean an unfused Gotenks. With Goten
Trunks
and Trunks
had some good stuff in the early bits too with Mai, I thought.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Want to know? I thought it was
Weird.
interesting when we connected earlier. You know, you'd said something about Trunks is sort of like the extension of Goten. Like you give Goten or you give Trunks to Goten so that way Trunks can still be around in the story. But for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, Super kind of pushed Goten to the back a lot in favor of some Trunks stuff between future Mai and then Mai getting wished back to young little girl status, which is a whole other creepy level thing I don't really want to talk
Yeah,
about.
because she's still a woman in her 40s being with a very young. And plus, Mai is in her 40s in the main timeline. But if the future timeline happened, then Pilaf wouldn't have gotten the Dragon Balls and wished themselves the same age as Goku, which means that much like in the GT timeline, Mai would be like in her like 80s or something, or not 80s, but like her 50s, 60s or
I
70s.
think I think Trunks is probably in his late 20s, early 30s, betting a woman in
Mhm.
her late 40s and early 50s.
Or she's in her 40s when Trunks is like, you know, 7.
Oh, yeah, math is hard. All right, that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing I will lead with. I'll also lead with maybe she got wished back young in a different way. I mean, actually, I told you for prepping for this episode today, I watched the last 3 episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Bulma does make reference in there, just like she does in the latest Broly movie, about how she wants to use the power of Shenron to be able to wish herself a little bit younger. Maybe Mai
Mm-hmm.
was a little, early to that trend. Maybe she had already figured out a way to collect the Dragon Balls herself without Emperor Pilaf realizing and wishing her ass young once every 5 to 10 years.
What's that British comedy where the young guy is with the very older, much older woman? It's like something in Maud.
Couldn't tell you.
Something.
You're so much more cultured than
Yeah.
I am.
No. It's a very famous movie. I'm just drawing a blank on it. Oh, it's gonna bug me now until I Google search on my phone. Pretending the phone isn't under the screen right now, while I try to
Are you thinking of The Graduate? You're not thinking of The Graduate?
Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude. Okay, so it's about a British
Harold
man
and Maude, British
banging
film.
a British
Mm-hmm.
MILF.
Yeah, and he's like in his. Well, no, it's more like a gilf.
Ooh, Gilf. Nice.
Oh yeah, got some gilf action there. He's like 20 years old, and he's like 20. She's 80. So
Whoa!
oh yeah, you ever seen this movie? Oh, you gotta. It's a classic.
I
of,
wonder if that's the movie
weird
that they
British
make
comedy.
fun of in The Office. Have you watched The Office or no?
Oh, years ago.
All right, so
Not long enough to give you.
There's an episode in The Office where Pam and Jim are trying to like download pirated movies, and they become friends with Andy or like are friendly to Andy because he knows how to do it. And they're watching this film the whole time. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam are like having a conversation about how Pam's dad and mom are getting divorced. But it's while they're watching this movie about, and it's Jack Black who plays like the young guy, and he's dating this woman in her fucking 80s or whatever in this weird romantic comedy kind of thing. And there's this scene where like she decides she's all set with him and then just hits her the button on her the thing that takes her up the stairs along the wall track. You know what the heck are those things called?
Yeah, like those little transportation things. Yeah.
So, and he just like does the slow no, stop the button, push the button. I wonder if that's the movie that they're making fun of now that you've just gave me that outline.
Probably that and Shallow Hal at the same time. If we have Jack Black in it, one of the most uncomfortable films I've ever rewatched in the last during quarantine.
Oh, you rewatched it recently. Does not hold up
bought-
well.
Oh, and nothing about it holds up. That's a movie that like every single component of it is wrong, like in ways you didn't think were uncomfortable until you watch it again and you're like, oh no.
I remember going to the
No.
movies on like a Friday night when I was in middle school to see that thing.
Yeah, when you're in middle school, it's okay. But then you watch it like as an adult and you have life experience and you're like, oh no, I see what you're trying to do.
Is
but
it the general
oh,
premise that you're having a problem with? The idea that he sees a hot
everything.
chick inside of a fat girl's body, or
No, it's every joke, every line, every comment. It was one of those movies where like watching it again, I'm like, oh no, everything is wrong here.
like, hey, I'm
Actually-
Jason Alexander coming off fucking Seinfeld. I haven't made a movie for like a long time. Haven't worked much, but Jack Black
funny 'cause
came calling with Shallow Hal.
And it's funny because I like Jason Alexander and Jack Black in movies. Like they're usually pretty great. It's just first off, Gwyneth Paltrow as the desirable person is already a after knowing about Goop, I'm like going out and putting a
I don't think
mile
I
between my.
know. I don't think I know what Goop is, and I don't know if I want to
Oh
ask.
no, oh no.
Oh no.
And what's his name? Anthony Robbins. Is that the self help guy?
Oh,
Like after
Tony Robbins. Oh,
Tony Robbins. There we go.
I forgot that
After all the
motherfucker was in that movie. Oh,
yeah, he's the main. He helps them figure out how to find a good girl. You know, after those
do you think Tony
controversies came to
Robbins had
light.
anything to do with the financing and production of that film?
Oh, I have. I'm sure they. He had some ad deal going into that because that's like, oh, they
Hmm.
really amp up how Tony Robbins self help. You know, you're like a magical self help guru. I'm like,
I mean,
lawsuits.
that could just be like a really early version of somebody quote unquote embracing the meme. You know what I mean? Like he understood that
They
he
took him
was like
seriously back then. They liked him back then. That's the funny thing. But now
2000.
it's like
What movie? What year was that? Like 2002, 2003?
2003, 2002, something like that. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess I always equate Tony Robbins a little bit more to the 90s, and by that point, he'd have been like a caricature of himself, and he'd be like, yo, I'll take a couple $1,000,000 to make fun of myself on set for a few days with Jack Black and Gwyneth Paltrow. That's cool. That'll be fun.
Yeah, but he's more making fun of Jack Black in that one, which is a strange thing. And then, all the fact that all the jokes are just like at the expense of like the people who they're making jokes about and not like
Not the expense
Jack
of
Black
fat
and
people.
yeah, oh, exactly. Or they're making fun of the body sizes and not like the fact that Jack Black is playing a totally shallow character. I'm getting sidetracked on this. Like
Fucking
Shallow
shallow
really.
Hal. You know what though? It
Oh no,
needed
that
to be
movie
discussed.
rubbed me the wrong way watching it again.
I understand that we just took a sharp right turn away from our buddies Goten and Trunks, but I was hanging out yesterday, listeners, with Mike Norm and Jimmy, and we put on a Dragon Ball playlist that we've had on SoundCloud for a long time. And I remembered there's a Goten and Trunks theme. So in order to get us back on track to the
What?
Goten and Trunks conversation, I'm just gonna hum a couple bars of that real quick to get us back in the mood.
Oh
Ready?
boy.
That's the beginning of it. I'm not going to sing the words because it'll probably sound racist and a poor attempt at Japanese, but it's a fun song. Maybe I just dropped in the music for the podcast listener. Did you know we're a podcast YouTube watcher? Singular. Uh, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify.
I guess my shallow Hal discussion scared them all.
Oh, fuck. All right, so they are bastardized in Dragon Ball Super. They're just smacked around. They're wharfed up. See, wharfed as a verb, past tense verb, sounds weirdly sexual. I don't know if we should keep saying.
Strange.
Yeah, wharfed.
Oh,
Wharfed them up.
you know.
Those eyebrows. Yeah, I saw the eyebrows. So it
I
kind of.
can't not do that. I'm sorry. You're opening yourself up to that one.
Yeah, no, eyebrows are good. So one of the easiest ways that they could have started to correct the Goten and Trunks thing for Super was when they're doing this 10-team recruitment piece before the Tournament of Power. They have the conversation, and you know what? Honestly, in retrospect, I'm okay with trading in Goten and Trunks on that team to have Frieza and Android 17 on that team instead. But even then, their function in that arc is essentially you're going to go off to this island, Minotaurus Island, and, sub in for 17 so he can come fight with us for 2 hours. And that's it. I do like, though, that Marin, Trunks and 18's daughter, sort of did get added in as like a little, third member to the trio there. That's pretty cute, but that's basically the extent of it. You could have very easily, put them in as a contender for the Tournament of Power, especially considering Fusion wasn't off limits, as we saw with Kefla. And they'd have been, I'd like to think, probably more relevant, at a minimum, just as relevant as Master Roshi was on that team.
Oh yeah, easily. I think the thing with Tournament of Power is they wanted to go with all the legacy characters. They wanted to go with a character from every major arc who was introduced. So I get why 17 was in. I get why they wanted to bring him in because 17 is an iconic character from that point of the series. And there's no one else really from that point of the series who they can draw that's uniquely the Cell Android saga. So 17 makes, except for 18, of course. I get that. But Goten and Trunks just was a missed opportunity for them to really advance. And a lot of the problem with the Tournament of Power is that a lot of the recurring characters coming back for this arc, a lot of the development was just repeating what they had already gone through in Z, recycling. This was a chance for Goten and Trunks to really develop on their own and become dynamic characters in and of their own right.
And
And they really didn't.
yeah, I was actually just kind of doing the math in my head. Like, is there one from every major arc? But there kind of really is. Maybe save for Majin Buu, and the only reason he's not there. Well, I guess yeah, that's kind of the reason Buu isn't there. He falls asleep, and then they have to go get Frieza in hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
But seeing Ultimate Gohan, quote unquote Ultimate Gohan from that arc back involved in the Tournament of Power and that level of power is cool. I don't know. I guess my biggest issue. Let's talk about, besides the underutilization part. Let's talk about the fact that their appearance and their age, as it stands right now in the continuity and the canon, whatever the heck we're calling it, that doesn't make any fucking sense. They still appear to be at or around the ages of 7 or 8 years old. When you actually look at how much time has passed, they're actually in the vicinity of like 12, 13, 14 years old. And they haven't aged a bit.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think that's the case? I have my own thoughts on it, but I want to hear what you think on it first.
I think, well, it's two things. One is that I don't think the Super Crew is as experienced with time skips as they were with Z. Toriyama, we mentioned before, was had a talent with time skips. He understood how to make every character, take them from where they were and put them in a kind of similar situation, but not quite. And in Z, with every time skip, the characters always look slightly different. Their uniform changed, or they looked taller. With Dragon Ball, Goku always looked different. Even with every time skip, he looked significantly different. He was taller, more muscular. He had a different outfit on, a different style in some fashion. Gohan, especially, every arc looked different. He had a new haircut. He had a new physicality. Priorities were different. When you look at Goten and Trunks with their time skip, again, they look their age. I don't know if the guys working on Super really realize how old Goten and Trunks really are now. I think they're a little afraid to do their own thing with the character designs.
Exactly.
And they're kind of building off of the exact template left by Z because they know that's what works for them. And I fear that if they don't realize that Goten and Trunks are like preteens, then they're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to really use these characters well, because it's weird that they look like they're 7 when they're twice that age, essentially.
Yeah.
At this point.
I think you hit it, dude. I think you hit it right out of the gate. Because this is I say it a lot. I reference this talking point pretty frequently, but we're at a weird point with Dragon Ball Super when this series is airing, and that there's no preceding material to go off of, with the exception of the first 30-ish episodes off of those 2 movies. With Dragon Ball, there's a manga. Every time there's a time skip, like you said, Akira Toriyama does a great job at slightly updating, aging up his characters, whether that be through a different kind of outfit, or they can just look, like they are a little bit older, a little bit more developed from their training, whatever the heck the case is. Dragon Ball, it's all Goku. He does that several times with Goku. Dragon Ball Z, he does it, 4 or 5 or 6 different times with Gohan. Like, Gohan is very much the barometer of Dragon Ball Z. You look at his character design and you know exactly what part of Dragon Ball Z that you're in. I think it was a missed opportunity to do a similar thing in Dragon Ball Super with Goten and Trunks, but it's like you said, it's because they were afraid to work off of the, pre-established template, what they knew actually worked. It was a way for them to try to continue to stretch. I mean, the fact that Dragon Ball Super is all supposed to take place between the end of Buu and the end of Z, it's a finite, a finite amount of time. Stretch it as long as you can. Give me an arc like the Tournament of Power where you can, squeeze 40 episodes out of a day and a half in the canon time or whatever. There hasn't always been a necessity to age up or change the character designs for those characters, Goten and Trunks, whoever, to notate a hop or a skip in time. There hasn't always been a necessity for it. I think that there, however, has been a missed opportunity for it. You could have had, in the same way, when Gohan shows up at the beginning of Z in his little, hat with the Dragon Ball on it, when he goes to Namek and he's in his Saiyan armor, when he comes back and he's in the Piccolo stuff, when he goes and fights Boo and he, either has the blue gi or, the clothes that they make for him before he goes to fight Boo again. Like, every time you look at Gohan and Z, you know exactly where you are in Z. I could catch a random clip of Goten and Trunks from anywhere in Super and just be like, yeah, without any context, and maybe not be sure from when it is. Like, they missed an opportunity to age up Goten and Trunks to show that time has passed in this respective series, and this is what we're working towards the end of Z when they're adults. And it makes me so mad, but I get it. It's because Akira Toriyama's not there, calling the shots anymore in terms of the manga and giving them an outline to work off of. They're shooting from the hip, working within the established boundaries.
And they're scared to really explore how character design influences character, because they have to realize they know where it's going. They know we're going to have to get to Trunks being the CEO of Capsule Corp, essentially. Well, not CEO, but like rising in the ranks of Capsule Corp.
Yeah.
And you need to have Goten be a total ladies' man. And they need to get to that point. And both characters look physically different by the time you get there. They have to start making the transition. And it's like designing the Charmeleon when you have a Charmander and a Charizard. The middle awkward phase is the most awkward as hell kind of thing you can do. How do you draw a character? How do you create a character who's going through the awkward puberty phase of their character development? It's messy and uncomfortable, and it's hard.
I love putting that. I love the Charmeleon thing that you just put on that. That's a great point. From going from cute little Charmander to big badass Charizard, you got to have that awkward mix of the two in between.
Oh yeah, and very few hunters ever show up.
Yeah, right. Never that lucky.
No, never.
And while you were just saying that, I'm like, yeah, how do you show that? I would love to see, like, in Dragon Ball Super, one of the few things that I can consistently say about it and will always praise it for, they do slice of life episodes pretty good. Their one-off slice of life stuff is pretty funny. Like, Dragon Ball Z is not a very funny series for the most part. Dragon Ball Super is a fucking hilarious series. And I don't know if you guys know me from listening to the podcast. I like to laugh. So when you can put some effective action and effective comedy together into one series, it's a winner for me. That's why I always prefer OG Dragon Ball over Dragon Ball Z. I think that's why Super resonated a little bit more positively with me than it did people who may be more hardcore about Dragon Ball Z. But, like, give me a slice of life episode where Goten meets, like, his first girl that, like, gives him that tingle, that Peter tingle, where he's like, I think I want to go approach that girl, and have him have, like, a nice tender moment with Chi-Chi where Chi-Chi coaches him up to go approach the girl and, give her a compliment about how she's cute or whatever. Or show me an episode where Trunks, 8-year-old kid, I guess, even though he's 14, he's still 8. Show me something that shows me that he's, got an entrepreneurial spirit and that it's only, a matter of time until he takes over Capsule Corp, or that he too is a tech genius like his grandfather and mother before him. Super could have very easily given me a one-off filler episode where either one of those two were the subject of the episode, and I'd have been like, hell yeah, all right, now I'm kind of now I see how they kind of progress down that road. But, like, it was just easier for them to ignore them and not do that at all.
What's interesting is that Trunks, they used in 3 different ways in Super. They use him in Mai, which is interesting because Goten is the ladies' man, but Trunks is the only one who gets a girlfriend basically the most of Super. They use Trunks in comparison to his future counterpart to show how different the child is from the adult.
Love that.
Which is great, but it furthers future Trunks' development, not kid Trunks' development, which is interesting. It furthers the development of
a little bit, but you know what, dude? There are certain scenes, especially, I don't remember what episode it is off the top of my head. I'll guess it's somewhere in like the late 40s, early 50s of Dragon Ball Super. But the ending scene is the two of them talking about how different their lives have been, and then they kind of like float up above. I have the picture burned into my brain of them like looking out over West City on the horizon, and it's like a really cool, heartwarming moment. It kind of gave me vibes of, and it's obviously different because it's an older version of this same person, but it kind of gave me like a Tapion vibe. Like he wanted like an older brother type to look up to a little bit, and he has like the older brother type and this older badass future version of himself who comes from the hell world.
That's fair. That's fair.
I kind of like that a little bit for little kid Trunks. But other than that, I don't know. That's probably my favorite use of him.
There's only one other thing. There's only one other thing they use him for, I think, and that's to further Vegeta's character.
Further or
one of the best scenes
or recycle a part of it. You could say further in episode 2 when he takes him to the amusement park and makes good on that promise that he makes in Majin Buu arc. But
yeah, I was thinking of that specifically early on.
Sorry to take the air off
the load. Oh no, it's fine. I see how it is.
I got you, man.
But that's the gist of it. Really, they really do low their load, so to speak, with Trunks very early on. Most of the best stuff with Kid Trunks and with Goten is done in the recycled stuff for the movie to pad that out.
Yeah, and
I think in Super anyway.
Again, and it's only because it's like to pass in the movie scenes and in the anime too. Them being the ones poking around, being real mischievous and looking for the Dragon Balls and the prize stuff, and they're really only there as like background characters at best, and just like convenient little, what's that word? Things that move the plot along.
Plot devices.
They're just plot devices to be able to cover up for certain things. Like the also the conduit to that whole, not that it's really an arc within Dragon Ball Super, but the copy Vegeta thing, them like sneaking onto Monica's space delivery spaceship to like make that happen. Like they're like the spark to get a story started or to the next part. I don't know if plot devices, I feel like that's too much credit given to them, but I don't know. They're just not used consistently enough or in a way that contributes to them at all, or contributes to the development of their character at all. But knowing that Goten eventually grows up to be this ladies' man who hates fighting, Trunks grows up to be this, great businessman who takes over, as president, I assume, of Capsule Corp.
Or something like that, at least. Who's geared up to it anyway.
Well, the other thing, too, now that I'm thinking about it, we haven't, and I know you and I talked about it today, you're not caught up on all of the Moro arc yet, but we're probably going to talk about it. Probably going to talk about it next month. Me and you, possibly. But I don't really think Goten, I could be wrong off the top of my head, because this has gone on now for upwards of 20 effing chapters. No joke. The Moro arc, when it's all said and done, will be one of the longest arcs in Dragon Ball Super when the anime comes back. They have a lot of opportunity to pad out with filler material. Each chapter, each month can very easily be between 3 to 4 episodes in and of themselves if you chunk them out. So I say all of that to say Goten and Trunks really have not played a role in the Moro arc to this point. And I don't know what the story is going to do after the Moro arc concludes. But in a perfect world where we have the ability to, utilize these two characters more, how would you like to see Goten and Trunks used when Super, when they do get their opportunity to come more into the story in Super? How would you like to see them used that helps move them toward what we're led to believe they become based off of the end of Dragon Ball Z? Do you want them to be fighting more? Do you want them to like go off and do their own kind of like sitcom based trope stuff like I outlined before, where Trunks makes a lemonade stand?
For one, it's interesting. I want to see them get stuck in a situation that they have to deal with on their own, and each one of their unique skill sets is able to solve the situation. Where it's not just them working together as like one collective unit, but rather as two separate, mutually independent but beneficial together characters.
So what I'm hearing is we need to find them in a
because I feel like
situation in which
with a
they can't do the fusion
with
dance.
Goten and Trunks, yes, or in some way they have to work separately to solve a problem. And a fusion dance to beat some bad guy or something like that. Like even like a little, even if it could be like the, I don't want to compare it to the clone Vegeta arc because that's not a good example
It's not, and I
necessarily the
actually thought
structure of the
that's
arc,
exactly what they
but
were trying
something
to do when
that's
Copy Vegeta
functionally
arc
like that.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, but something that's functionally different from a narrative standpoint, but still puts Goten, and Trunks on their own. And you can always have the idea of someone else trying to get to them in some way, or maybe a villain is like fighting Vegeta or Goku or whatever, so they can't get to them in time. But they're in a unique position where they can make a big contribution to the conflict's resolution, and it really highlights their characterization up until this point, or maybe shows how they're diverging as characters from what they used to be. Something that shows them growing up. I don't think we need necessarily the Gohan moment where, Gohan beats the big bad of the arc and in a moment that highlights his characterization, but we need something that shows that both Goten and Trunks are growing as characters, especially Goten, because he is in desperate need of more independently driven narrative stuff. Because unlike Trunks, who at least has his future counterpart, Goten feels very much left behind throughout all of Super, even more so than Trunks, I think.
Yeah, which is weird because a big part of Trunks' character in Super, or not even, excuse me, not in Super, a big part of Trunks' character in Z, Little Kid Trunks, is that he's kind of jealous that Goten has got this big older brother to be able to hang out with and learn things from. And even though we all know Future Trunks is one of the top 5 forever characters in Dragon Ball history, Little Kid Trunks having that tie to him is always probably going to make people favor Little Kid Trunks a little bit more than Goten, I think, anyway. So I just think that the creators of Super, again, them not being, going off of Toriyama manga exclusively in terms of the, pre-existing story and kind of shooting from the hip in a lot of ways. I think those people preferring to stick to Trunks-based interactions or Trunks-based kind of stories when those two characters do come up and kind of just have Goten be the little tag along and have it more be about Trunks. I think it makes all the sense in the world, seeing as we are, in that generation now where people who work on Dragon Ball probably grew up, consuming Dragon Ball. I loved Goten when I first met him as a character, and I was like, yeah, it's like little kid Goku again. I love this. But I could see how Trunks could have that same kind of appeal and like long-term affection from a fan base, and maybe the people who work on Super when they're considering what stories they do and don't want to tell, maybe there's kind of automatically predisposition to focus more on Trunks over Goten.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. I think that Goten needs more moments just to shine as a character, because I feel like so far he's really, I don't know, they haven't done enough with him.
He's the dumb
Even
little
in
brother.
Z, they didn't do it. Exactly.
At
Even in
best.
Z, they didn't do a whole lot with him. So yeah, at best. And it's funny because GT doesn't either. GT also really favors Trunks over Goten by a lot.
Oh yeah, by
But
so
even
much that
GT,
Trunks is actually a main character in GT, and Goten is very much relegated to background duty.
exactly.
Same
But even
idea.
in GT, they felt yeah. But even in GT, they felt different, like different characters, and not like those two guys. They felt like they had diverged enough to be independent people. I don't like how GT did it because obviously Trunks became like the only character who mattered, and Goten was like, who cares what happens to him? But I feel like what GT did do correctly, what GT did correctly, wow, those are words, is they made them feel like unique people. They weren't just those two guys. They were Goten and then they were Trunks. They were two separate people. I feel like Super needs to establish these two separate characters and not just two people attached at the hip who can just, because even throughout all this, we just said, oh, Goten and Trunks. We never said Goten, period.
Yeah.
We said Yeah, we said Trunks period, but not Goten period.
So
That's a problem.
you just fucking opened up a hole. You just hit a vein for me, dude. That's a great point. Yeah, instead of having Goten have his slice of life moment where he goes and hits on a lady for the first time, or have Trunks open up a lemonade stand or whatever, I want to see the episode where they just break off and go do their own things, but like make the conscious decision to go break off and do their own things, and we get to see them become like their own characters. Here's the thing, keeping them as little kids, 7-8-year-old kids, it's always going to be easier to pair up the stupid two little idiot kids together and just put them off into the corner, have them do their joke, and that be the end of it. If you actually let them age up to where they are in the canon, 13, 14 years old, around that approximately, you could have two new individual characters to bring into the fold of like this ever increasing power creep thing that Dragon Ball has going on. Why not do that? But that was all a long way to say. You just sparked a cool little memory. You said one of the things that GT got right, and I paused because I think GT did a lot of cool, fun things.
They did.
People shit on GT a little too much, but there is this one part of GT that kind of perfectly lends itself to what we're talking about here. Or in my brain it does. I can't remember exactly when it is. I want to say it's during the Super 17 arc, maybe, when a bunch of the, dead villains have since broken out of hell, and I think it's like Goten is fighting somebody and he gets fucked up. He's like out on a date, and then he gets like his ass beat, and Trunks shows up and saves him, and like they have this little interaction. All they say to each other after the ass whipping is all like taken care of is, "Yo," that's it. Yo, and then they kind of, hey, it's a scene where it's like, I know that we have been best friends for forever, and I still have your back so much to the point that I just showed up and saved your ass last minute. But I haven't seen you in like 5 or 10 years. But yo, like let them diverge and become their own separate characters. That's what your point just made me think of, is that scene. I need to figure out what episode that is.
Yeah, it's like, is that right before they Super 17 even shows up? I think it's like leading right up to that.
It might
when
be.
They all escape from hell.
It might be
all the
that.
bad guys escape from hell.
Yeah, let them go on different paths already. Let's break them up. They can still get together and fuse every once in a while when a threat really, because that's even when like you see them, because every once in a while you'll see a Dragon Ball Heroes clip where it's like older Gotenks fusing together, and you're like, oh, even an older age, they're still fusing up. That's okay. Like they're the kind of characters who it's kind of like the commonly discussed trait of their characters, that they don't take things very seriously in terms of their training. They know that their dads are there to bail them out if things get ugly, like a true entitled rich kid does. What's up, Donald Trump? Saw your taxes.
Oh God!
Yeah, what a fucking idiot!
$100 million in back
idiot.
taxes there,
bro. The first year of his motherfucking presidency, he filed $750. He paid $750 as the president of the United fucking States. Every stupid asshole.
I pay more in taxes at my college. I pay more in taxes at my dumb college job, let alone
every stupid asshole who says, "Oh, but he's contributing his salary to people who've drug problems." Hey, that's great. The president's salary is about $500,000 a year. Contributing $500,000 a year when you are a self-proclaimed, self-made, quote-unquote, billionaire, $500,000 is not even a drop in the fucking bucket. So that's number one in terms of throwing that argument out. Number two is, this motherfucker paid less taxes in the last 2 years. $1,500 over the course of 2 years, while you are literally the president of the United States.
College students with no money in their bank account spend more money in their taxes than Donald Trump did in the last 15 years.
I just freaked the fuck out. All right, sorry guys. You guys know I'm good for one every single podcast. Listen, I just want Goten and Trunks to get their due. It's cool that future Trunks came back for Dragon Ball Super and got to interact with an older little kid Trunks. That's literally one of my favorite parts of Dragon Ball Super, is watching that cool interaction when we get to see it. Let's let little kid Trunks work toward future like adult Trunks is the one everyone likes. Let's
Hmm.
let Trunks age up toward that same vicinity and let him be a
Yeah.
badass too, maybe. Who knows?
And plus, now he's met his future self, so he has a sense of
Of how cool he could
comparison.
be.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's an
There's a
interesting. Do you think? All right. So obviously GT, and this is another suggestion that we got. I don't know if I told you this one,
Mhm.
but it's the idea of establishing Super Saiyan 4 into the Dragon Ball Super canon with the God transformations and how does SSJ4 come in, right? We
Mhm.
got to go with the assumption that it probably won't happen in GT as like its own little what if universe,
No,
right?
no, yeah.
But we know how Trunks develops in the GT universe, and we probably had some, conceptions about how he would develop in Dragon Ball Super before we knew that he would meet future Trunks from the Hell timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a thing that I've never really considered. Now that he's met Trunks from the future Hell timeline, maybe he'll be like, dude, I know how badass I am from this different dimension. Granted, it was out of necessity because my dad was murdered and so was everyone else that I know and love. But I know that the potential exists within me to be that fucking cool.
Mm.
Do you think maybe he'll make a concerted effort to be a better fighter? Or do you think he just kind of defaults to, I'm a lazy businessman and I'm also the son of the richest woman in the world?
I think he's going to be the aspiring to be badass trope. And it's interesting because this discussion makes me think of a specific Marvel storyline. There's a character who people have lots of strong opinions on named Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. This is before she became Captain Marvel. This happened. In the 90s and 80s, Carol Danvers underwent several horrifying, terrible events that just basically derailed her entire life and destroyed her entire self-confidence and any hope at becoming anything more than a walking train wreck of a person until the event House of M came along. In House of M, that's where Scarlet Witch recreates reality to show this idealized version of what she wishes society was like.
No more mutants.
Well, that leads to that. This is before that point.
Whoops.
That ends House of M. But right before that, Carol Danvers. Oh, yeah, spoilers for House of M, 20-year-old storyline. But during this arc, she encounters an idealized version. Carol Danvers encounters an idealized version of herself, who's basically like that universe's Wonder Woman. And this takes her and says, okay, listen, that could be this right now. I'm not living up to my potential. I'm going to try reaching that potential. And then the next arc, the next comic that featured her right after that, the Miss Marvel story comic, shows her making a concerted effort to become as great as the version that she saw in this idealized future.
What was the difference between the
And
two
I'm
Carols?
hoping,
Was it one had alcoholism and one didn't, or what?
basically, yeah, honestly,
Yeah.
one wasn't
Because that's a
sexually assaulted
that's
and
a
forced to give birth
huge
to her
part.
rapist.
I don't think a lot of people who only know or Captain Marvel or Carol Danvers through the MCU know that a huge part of Carol Danvers' story is that she had a fucking fight with the bottle like for the entirety.
Oh,
Like it's like she loved
yeah.
alcohol and Rogue put her in a coma. Like those are the two things you need to know that happened to Captain Marvel like after 1985.
Yeah, after Avengers 200, those are the two big things. 200 being the really screwed up one that everyone tries to ignore ever happened.
Oh, the
for
sexual
obvious
the
reasons.
sexual assault one.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, the one where she's raped by an alien and then impregnated by said alien, and then gives birth to the alien that assaulted her.
Wow.
Comics are freaking weird.
Keep your politics
It's
out of
horrible.
my comics, bro. How
Oh.
come all these SJWs want to put comics in my comics, politics in my comics, bro?
Whenever I see people say, "Oh, Carol Danvers was better before she was Captain Marvel," I'm like, "Well, was it when she was in the coma, or when she was being like
Or when she was Miss
horribly
Marvel,
tortured?"
right?
Miss Marvel? Well, she had like 20 different names for a while there. Miss Marvel, Binary. There were a few different ones.
Oh yeah, when
Binary was
she
pretty
actually,
cool, actually.
so she took on all the energy from the Kree star, she becomes the binary, right?
Yeah, a giant black hole,
Yeah.
anti-black hole radiant. It's cool stuff. Like that's some Dragon Ball Z stuff right there, Carol
Dude.
Danvers.
We should, I don't know. Me and Ant were pitching around some podcast ideas that he and I are both respectively working on before we hit record.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, just the idea of a general nerd geek podcast is something that I flirt with quite a bit. There's so many of them that I don't think it would be worth doing. And I don't think I would do a particularly good job about talking about those things as I would say about a niche topic like Dragon Ball that I've been passionate about for, 25 years.
Mm.
But that little exchange about talking about some of the fun shit that Carol Danvers, or not fun, some of the horrifying shit that Carol
Yeah,
Danvers has
it's
been subjected
twisted.
to.
Some the writers are just though these writers had a real sick passion for torturing this poor character over 30 years.
Keep your
It's like
politics out of my books, bro.
you mean the books where where they talk about like civil rights movement and
Yeah, you mean like
and
X-Men?
racism?
You mean like the book where the good guy was based on Martin Luther King and the bad guy was based on Malcolm X?
Oh, you mean
X-Men?
the book? You ever read God Loves, Man Kills? Like that's one of the most political comic books I've ever read in my life.
I have not read that, no.
Oh no, it's a graphic novel.
That's
It's
an
like
X-Men story though, right?
yeah, it's like 60 pages. You could read it in like an hour.
Which
It's
one is
short.
which one is that one? I feel like I know.
That's where they introduce the character Stryker, who's in a lot of the X-Men films, but the character in the comics is totally different. He's like a pre. He's basically if Mike Pence was an X-Men villain, is the best way of putting it.
Fuck your needle
or like
exchange programs. Here's some Sentinels, bitch.
basically, like if you take Fred Phelps and Mike Pence, not Mike Phelps, that's the swimmer. You take those two people together, you combine them. That's Stryker essentially, and it's like this televangelist who's rallies up these extremists who just kill mutants, and it's draws a lot of parallels between cultish evangelical people and their promotion of bigotry and hatred. It's quite interesting.
That's weird. It sounds like what you're describing would be very relevant for a lot of people in America to read today.
Oh,
Evangelicals
yeah, no, it's
utilizing their or finding excuses to lean into their bigotry. Yeah, evangelicals, I see you. You stupid motherfuckers. I ended the last stream with yelling about Nazis. Allow me to yell about evangelicals. Listen, evangelicals, I understand that Jesus seems to be like a pretty cool dude, especially because you're white. Here's the thing about Jesus, though. He wasn't white. He actually was kind of brown and actually kind of fucked around with whores and lepers and, poor people, all the things that you hate. Here's the thing about Jesus. Do not continue to hide behind Jesus when Jesus literally would like be the guy that you hate at a fucking festival weekend because he smells like he hasn't showered in 2 weeks. Don't shield yourself against that big lowercase t with the dead guy on top of it because you hate brown people. All right. That's just, it makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense.
It's funny. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's funny. I was going to say, it's funny how many people who love religion, or at least claim to, don't seem to actually have ever read the Bible and not seen it as just a bunch of quotes taken out of context.
No, I watched the Bible. The Bible, it's on PBS.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They would never watch something on PBS.
No, of course not.
PBS, that's socialism paid for by the government, man. Even though they have commercials
it's so funny
now.
There's so many. Oh, actually, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen PBS in way too long.
Neither have I. But like Sesame Street moved to HBO and they had to take on advertising. Like that's what you need to know about PBS since the Trump administration took over.
Yeah, they wanted to cut as much funding from those guys as possible. Like they only, you ever see the Mr. Rogers thing where Mr. Rogers had to go up to like I forget what committee it was.
I think it was the FCC. Maybe it wasn't the FCC. I do know what you're talking about. Though. FCC, it wouldn't make sense. FCC is about like compliance standards and stuff like that. But I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
and why it was important and why the educational aspect was super important, especially with like latchkey kids in the fucking 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Fred Rogers, room of cynical like politicians to love him. Yeah. Oh, in a heartbeat. It's great.
Fred Rogers standing up to politicians. D. Snyder from Twisted Sister standing up to politicians. Those are like two of my favorite celebrities who you'd never expect to go in and be a badass against, the Washington elite who just go in and tear them a new asshole. I don't even like Twisted Sister or D. Snyder, but D. Snyder against that Tipper Gore thing in the 80s, that shit is fucking fascinating to dig into. And we have talked about so many fun things today that weren't specifically Goten and Trunks, but this has been a blast, man.
Goten and Trunks are open-ended topics.
Yeah, no, for sure. They could lead you to Tipper Gore and Dee Snider. They could lead you to Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers having an alcohol problem. they could lead you all over the place. Do you have any final parting thoughts on Goten and Trunks before we wrap it up here that you wanted to get in?
I do. I think Goten is a character who is one of the most underutilized characters in the entire series. I think of any character in the show, Goten is the one with the most potential to be developed in some unique ways. I think Trunks is a great character already. I think Goten could be a great character. And I think that's the big thing that
it's Goku's other kid. I mean, you think about all the things they were able to do with Gohan. There's no reason they couldn't try to do some similar stuff, at least make an attempt with Goten.
Yeah, exactly. Goten just feels like it's in everyone's shadows. And that's the thing that bothers me the most. Because they could do so much with him, but just haven't yet. And it's disappointing.
Well, hopefully they will, the people over at the Dragon Ball room will see our stream here. They'll take some notes on how we feel they should better utilize these characters and, write us up some drafts and we can get some approvals. So
hopefully.
Ant and I try to do these discussions once a month on the YouTube. If you were able to join us tonight live or watching the video afterwards, thank you so much. YouTube.com/Dragon Ball Super Dope. And again, we're compiling topic suggestions. The way we got a bunch of suggestions for tonight was through that new Facebook group we started. It's Dragon Ball Roshi's Secret Stash. Because again, everyone always knows about his porn, but never about his weed or his memes. And I don't like that. So go join that group, get in the conversation with me and a bunch of my cool, super dope friends. Yeah, it's been fun. Make your suggestions there. A couple of things that we may have in future discussions. I already teased integrating Super Saiyan 4 into the canon. Maybe some other GT elements to recycle in the future. My friend Bridget really needs a Piccolo specific episode. Maybe about how, him and Dende and that Guardian of Earth reciprocity, how that works.
We're doing an entire episode, but the driving episode.
Honestly,
14 hours discussing him driving.
Make it sound like I haven't done an episode on the driving episode already. We already did Goten and Trunks, so I'll cross that one out. Old Broly versus New Broly. We had a ton of good suggestions this week from that group, so go join it if you want to get into the discussion. Dragon Ball Roshi's Secret Stash on the Facebook. And where can people find your ratings and check out your stuff, man?
You can find me on CBR, Anime Herald, Anime Feminist, some stuff on Scream Ant and the Mary Sue. I have a lot of stuff on Twitter that comes out. I just babble on Twitter all the time. It's obnoxious and wonderful.
Ant is a tremendous Twitter follow, not only because he's always talking about everything with everyone, but also every once in a while he has to put some fucking chud in his place.
Oh God, no! My engagement alone is some guy is.
So you got engaged and some Nazi fuckface was like, "I know where you live."
Yeah, I'm like, okay, show up. Let's see what you got. Come on over.
Exactly. Fucking show up. See what happens, Nazis. Seriously.
He went quiet after that. It was strange.
Yeah, it's weird what happens when you're like, go ahead and end my life like you just threatened to do because I don't fucking have much stock in it myself personally. They're like, whoa, are you all right, bro? And I'm like, no, I'll literally fucking rip your ear off with my mouth like Mike Tyson did to Evander Holyfield, you ignorant piece of shit. All right, I'm done yelling about Nazis.
Eyes go simpler. I'm like, yeah, let's show up. Come on, let's see it. Come on over.
Square up.
Put the ball in their court. Give them the ball, and then they for some reason don't toss it. It's strange.
That's what I'm going to start doing. I'm just going to start giving people my address and be like, hey, what's up? I'll wait outside for you. Word? Cool. See you when I see you.
Make them do the hard work. Make them do the heavy lifting. They won't.
I definitely had... I'm not going to get into how many people threatened my life in the last week. All right, that's going to do it for Dragon Ball. Super dope. See, my problem, Ant, is you do it on Twitter with like anonymous weirdos, right? Who won't show up to your house. My problem is I'm 31, so I'm way more prone or apt to use Facebook than I am Twitter, right? But I'm in those around town groups. And when people say some stupid racist bullshit in an around town group, if I can hold my tongue, I usually like just hang out to like, laugh and like watch stupid people get railed on by people, making, dunking with the comments. But every once in a while, I can't hold my tongue. And then before you know it, I got people like threatening to hide in the trees out my house, shooting with their fucking composite bow, shit like that.
Oh,
good times. All right, so if all of those death threats that it and I get on a fairly regular basis didn't just compel you to subscribe or go read his readings, read his writings. Make sure you do that.
My readings.
Yeah, go read his readings. Make sure you go read Anthony's writings. CBR.com, Mary Sue, Anime Feminist, everywhere. Gramuglia, but the G is silent. I only say that because it kind of just helps for me. Gramulia. And
My names are weird.
yeah, Italian names are the weirdest. Make sure you rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube, where we do these streams a couple times a month. And yeah, that's gonna do it for Super Dope. Thank you for checking it out. I usually end the show by singing like a version of the theme song where I kind of try to synthesize maybe one or two things that happened during the duration of the conversation, but I do it to the tune of Limit Break X Survivor, or at least the last few notes. But I don't know. I don't know what to do today. It's about Goten and Trunks, so Goten and Trunks not getting enough time. So all right, this is like an improv exercise at this point for me now. Ready? Goten and Trunks, they got boned today. They got boned today, meaning they took a dick in their butt, because my humor is perpetually 10 years old. And that's going to do it for Super Dope. We'll see you next week. We release these every Wednesday, and we so appreciate you taking the time to check it out. And we love you, buddy. Thank you, man.
I think I have the maturity of a 10-year-old with that joke. I don't go with it because I laughed.
Goten and Trunks, they got boned today. See you, YouTube. Thank you guys for hanging with us.